Hi everybody, this is Kevin Iole at Yahoo Sports and welcome to my coverage of MMA and specifically UFC 220. It's going to be an incredible main event on January 20th in Boston. Stipe Miocic will defend his heavyweight title against number one contender Francis Ngannou in what I think is going to be the most significant heavyweight title fight in UFC history. While we wait for that fight, and I will have my pick on it, by the way, later in the week, but while we wait for that fight, I just wanted to run down 5 fights that I think right now stand as the 5 most significant fights in UFC heavyweight title history. So let's start with number 5. That happened at UFC 68. It was Randy Couture challenging Tim Sylvia on March 3rd, 2007 for the heavyweight title. And a lot of people may forget now, it's almost 11 years ago since that fight, but there was a lot of people who were worried for Randy Couture's health going into that fight. He was already a legend at that point in his career. He was going to fight the giant Tim Sylvia, who had about an 8.5-inch height advantage and about a 45-50 pound weight advantage in the fight. There were people who thought Couture shouldn't have taken the fight, who thought the UFC shouldn't have put him in the bout. Everybody was worried about Randy Couture's health. Until the first bell rang, when Couture hit Sylvia on the chin with a big shot, knocked him down, and dominated the rest of the way. In my mind, that fight, which Couture won by unanimous decision, is the 5th most significant heavyweight title fight in UFC history. Number 4 came at UFC 121 on October 23rd, 2010. And that was kind of a changing of the guard fight. Cain Velasquez won the heavyweight title that night when he defeated Brock Lesnar. It was really a no contest. Going into the fight, a lot of people wondered if Cain would be able to deal with the enormous size and power that Brock Lesnar would bring to the ring. Both guys were terrific wrestlers, but Brock was such a big and strong guy. But Cain was able to use his wrestling in that fight to keep the fight on his feet, and he had a huge advantage over Brock Lesnar. He stopped him in the middle of the second round. It was a big win for him, and I think that is the 4th most significant heavyweight title fight in UFC history. Number 3 is another one involving 2 familiar names, Randy Couture and Brock Lesnar. UFC 91, November 15th, 2008. And this was the fight that Brock Lesnar won the heavyweight title for the first time. Couture was the champion, and that was Brock Lesnar's 4th MMA fight overall, his 3rd fight in the UFC. He had lost his first fight in the UFC, so he'd never had a winning streak as a professional MMA fighter, but he ended up getting that bout. And he knocked out Randy Couture. And I think that is the 3rd most significant heavyweight title bout because that was kind of maybe the last we heard of the legend Couture. It was the emergence of the new legend Brock Lesnar. I think it had a lot of significance in the division. So I'm going to go with that one as my number 3 on the list. Number 2 was my only non-pay-per-view fight on the list, and that was UFC on Fox 1 when Junior Dos Santos upset Cain Velasquez on November 12th, 2011 in Anaheim, the first show ever on Fox. That was UFC's introduction really to the mainstream. This was broadcast network TV. It was the holy grail to people who had been watching MMA since the mid-1990s. Now it was finally here. It had arrived. It was on broadcast television in the United States, and the fight only lasted 1 minute and 4 seconds. Junior caught Cain with a big shot to the back of the head. He finished him off. He won the title. To me, that is number 2. But the fight that stands above all others as number 1 in UFC heavyweight title history, I think is an easy pick. Brock Lesnar defeating Frank Mir on July 11th, 2009 at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, UFC 100. What a night that was. Some of the biggest stars in MMA history, some of the greatest fighters in MMA history were on that card. In addition to Brock and Frank Mir in the main event, George St. Pierre fought on that card, Dan Henderson, Michael Bisping. Who can ever forget a young John Jones? 2 years before he won the light heavyweight championship was on that card. But that night was all about Brock Lesnar. And Brock Lesnar avenged his UFC opening defeat to Frank Mir in brutal fashion. He dominated Frank Mir, showed that he had grown as a fighter, and he defended his championship that he had won over Randy Couture in the second round. It was a brutal beating. He ended up bringing his wife, Rena Miro, into the ring after the bout and made some comments that were a little bit controversial. And that show sold 1.6 million. And I think that show kind of maybe led to the Fox deal 2 years later, because I think it showed the Fox executives, wow, if 1.6 million people are willing to buy this, this might be viable on broadcast television. And I think that played a big role in it. So that is my list of the 5 most significant UFC heavyweight title fights in history. I think the Junior Dos Santos Cain Velasquez fight almost edged it out because it was the first on broadcast television. But I think when you look at everything involved with UFC 100, you would have to go with Brock Lesnar and Frank Mir. Now, can Stipe Miocic and Francis Ngannou top that? I think it will. I think it's going to be the most significant fight in history. There's a lot on the line. These are 2 great fighters, probably the 2 best at one time going head-to-head. It is going to be something else to see. UFC 220. Stick it here on Yahoo Sports for total coverage of UFC 220. I'll have a lot all during the week, and I will have my pick for you on that big heavyweight title fight coming up. I'm Kevin Iole for Yahoo Sports. Thanks for watching us.